Hi everyone, good evening. Selina here from Subtle Balance. Two Instagram live interviews on one day in the series of women and empowerment. I'm so happy because we're going all the way up to California right now. But before I jump to that and before I introduce my special guest, I'm Selina from Subtle Balance. I'm a life coach and my mission is to help people become the best version of themselves by breaking toxic relationships and overcoming codependency. My guest is also a codependency coach, so I'm looking really forward to have this interesting convo with her. I created this series to create more awareness about women and empowerment because I think it's such an important topic to discuss more about. And I also think Instagram is an awesome platform to bring awesome women from all over the world together to elaborate on why they empower other people, why they do what they do, and to get to know each other. So let's bring her online. Let's see if Leah is here and if fingers crossed for the connection. Let's check. Is up and running. She will be here like in 1 minute. See some people joining us. Welcome. Oh, there she is. Hi.
Hi.
So happy you're here.
Thank you so much for having me, Selena. I'm so excited for today.
You're so welcome. Yeah, me too. It's the first time that I'm speaking or have a guest that's also a codependency coach. So I think you and me, we can elaborate on a lot of things. We can fill thousands of live interviews, I think. So maybe before we start and before I give you the word, can somebody send me like a thumbs up or a smiley so that I know that the audio and the visuals is all set and that we're up and running? Let's see. Oh, somebody's already. Hi, Selina. You look very confident and positive today. Good luck to you. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I see thumbs up. Thank you, Madeleine. All right, Leah, take it away. Who are you? What are you doing? Why did you decide to become a codependency coach? I'm giving the word to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you for what you're doing, Selena, because it's just so powerful. And I just think that it really signifies unity and community, and women empowering other women that's like the definition of unity.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. So nice of you. Thank you.
So guys, I'm Leah. I'm your codependency coach. I became a codependency coach this year, and it was really a 180 for me. You see, I didn't realize that I struggled with codependency my entire life. It showed up in loneliness and low self-worth and never feeling a sense of belonging, as well as the inability to say no and constantly putting everyone else's needs above my own. Now, I was first introduced to the term codependency when I was about 15 years old. My mother, who raised me as a single mom most of my life, she was extremely addicted to narcotics and alcohol during my high school years. And so at 15, she had gotten clean and sober for the first time. And in our small town, Al-Anon meetings were not offered. Now, for those who are not familiar with the addiction recovery community, Al-Anon meetings are for the family members of the addict. And really, I mean, they're really a meeting for codependents.
Mm-hmm.
And codependency isn't a term that is used a lot outside of the addiction community because the old definition of codependency really said that you had to be in an emotional relationship with somebody that was addicted to something.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, little sidetrack there.
Oh yeah.
So I was introduced to the topic for the first time when I was 15, and I struggled with it for years. But then at 19 years old, I had a really significant event happen. I detoxed my mother in my home for 4 weeks and then sent her to rehab for the final time.
And how old were you? 19 at the time when you started doing that? Wow, that's
Yeah.
impressive. That's really impressive. That's wow.
It was definitely one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do, but at the same time, I had really felt like I cut that chain of codependence with my mother in doing this. This was like a very liberating, independence making move to send her to rehab and tell her like this is the final time.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited to say that my mother has been sober now for 7 years since
Oh,
she went
wow.
to rehab.
Oh,
And we
yeah.
have a very amazing non-codependent relationship today.
Wow, congratulations with that, because that's also tricky. The sober part is difficult, but then the not codependency relationship afterwards, because you're used to that pattern for so many years, that's also a big achievement to break that one. So wow, that's so impressive. That's
Thank you.
awesome. Yeah.
I think that codependency is something that I'm always going to battle, especially with my relationship with my mother. Like it's always going to show up in ways. It's just we're learning how to deal with it in a more effective, open communication type of way that allows for it to equate to growth instead of pain.
Mhm. Yeah, but that is indeed. But it's so beautiful because you're both aware of it and you work through it. And it's like you're saying, it's a constant battle. It's a constant awareness of the things that you're bumping into, but you're doing it both. So that makes it like, yeah, the bond, the connection is stronger in some way, I think, or that's at least my experience with the codependency part. So when we speak about the codependency, you said it's from this year that you really started being a codependency coach. With
Yeah.
all the experience, why did you wait so many years to really start diving in and become a coach and helping others?
Yeah. Yeah. So I had this huge life-changing experience in sending my mom to rehab, and I really had felt like I had like broken the bond of codependency, the shackles of codependency, if you will. And so honestly, after that event, I didn't really give codependency a lot of thought. For me, like it was gone. The addict in my life was no longer an addict, so codependency was gone. I was so wrong. I was so wrong. But it took me another 5 years to really start to realize that. So fast forward about 4 years, no, about 5 years, I started really developing awareness around my health, my body, my mind, my soul. And I really started to change my nutrition, and I started to dive a little bit into the self-development industry and started to learn. I started listening to podcasts and things like that. And on this journey, which has now turned into a 3-year, almost 4-year journey of self-development,
Wow.
I realized that I was still struggling with a lot of things, right? I was still struggling with self-worth. I was struggling with people pleasing. And as I started to dive really deep into the root causes of all of these different behaviors, it kept circling back to codependency. And
Yeah.
it was like, wow, I had this like huge realization this year that I never actually got over codependency. Codependency, it was showing up before my mom became an addict, and it was showing up after my mom got clean and sober. Because you see, codependency has been a family cycle for me. It's something that
Yeah.
all the women in my family have generationally fallen into.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you take that with you, it's a generation over generation. It's a part of parenting, a part of education, and it's such a strong pattern that is inside yourself that I recognize what you're saying. You're not always aware of how deep the roots are of codependency. Sometimes I'm flabbergasted myself, like I thought I mastered this, or I thought I went through this already, this phase. I went through this. Why is it happening again? And
Yeah.
it's like you're saying, you're battling that fight. It's not a battle of 1 year or 2 years. I think it's something that you will struggle with the rest of your life. It is just keeping yourself aware of it constantly and being
Yeah.
aware of who am I? who am I to the world? Who am I presenting to the world? And it all starts inside yourself. And I think as a codependent, you tend to forget that sometimes, not lose, but to forget that sometimes. That's something I truly recognize. I see some people tuning in. If you have any questions for Leah or for me, leave them in a comment below. We will gladly discuss them. Yeah, also about codependency, if you have more questions, shoot, we're here for you also. Feel free. So now you're also working, you're coaching people in codependency. How is that for you?
It's been really interesting. It's been really interesting. I left my corporate job in the beginning of this year, and I didn't leave my corporate job to become a codependency coach. Honestly, that wasn't where I was going with it at all.
Yeah, but sometimes things turn out that way.
Yeah, they do. And that's the thing is, so, you know, these behaviors of codependency have followed me far. And one of them has been like where I've put my self-worth. And my self-worth has been closely related to my title, my job, my bank account, my social circle, how I look, all the things that really don't have any place making up our self-worth, but we end up being conditioned to believe equal self-worth. And because of this, I managed to get myself into a high-level job that typically required a bachelor's degree with no degree. And I was making really decent money. And I remember constantly telling myself, you love your job. You love your job. You're lucky to have this job. You absolutely love this job. It's wonderful. But really inside, I was screaming.
Yeah, exactly.
I was so stuck. I was just feeling so unfulfilled by the work that I was doing. I was working as a construction project manager and business development, and it wasn't fulfilling what I really wanted to do. So when I really started to sit down and evaluate, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Like, what is my mission? What is my mission? What am I supposed to do here? Because I know this isn't it. And what kept coming up for me was ending suffering. I wanted to end suffering. And I had no idea exactly how I was going to do it, but I knew that I wanted to launch myself into the self-development industry because that was what was ending my suffering on a massive scale. It was ending the faulty beliefs and the bad habits that I had picked up and the vocabulary that I used for myself, and like all these things were shifting. And I was like, okay, I'm going to end suffering through this, but I still didn't really know what I was going to do. And so I officially left my job. March 1st was my first day home, and I brought my 4-year-old home with me. He's been in daycare for his entire life. And so huge adventure, trying to find myself, figure out what I'm going to do, and also really develop a relationship with my 4-year-old that we hadn't gotten to have up to this point.
Huge shifts, I think. Wow, that's awesome.
Well, so the deeper I got into this, the deeper that I got into self-development, the more programs that I took, the more group coachings and stuff that I did, the more that I started to realize that all of these things that I was struggling with that kept coming back up were relating to codependence. And I asked myself, I was like, gosh, how many other people out there are suffering from codependence and don't even know it? Like, they don't even know that this is something that they're suffering from. Like, they feel broken, they feel crazy, they feel
alone of the time. A lot of loneliness as well, not feeling a void, a constant void in yourself. I think that's also the suffering part of codependency. I'm gonna see, because we have 2 comments. Working on codependency is so important in becoming sober. Yes, that's something that is really going hand in hand. Curious about codependency when you have a disabled child. Codependency both ways. That's really an interesting question. I will give the word to you first. What would you I don't know. Yeah, it's a lot of letters. I don't know what your name is, so I'm sorry. Thank you for the question. We will elaborate a little bit on it. disabled child codependency both ways. That's a really tough situation if you ask me. What would you recommend, or what would you do?
I would definitely say that it's really important to define between codependency and just dependence, because I think that when you have an alcohol or an addict in your life and codependency, a lot of times what you're doing is you're making up for their irresponsibility. Like, you feel responsible for their lack of responsibility. With a disabled child, that doesn't apply at all. It's more of a responsibility because of the lack of being able to have those responsibilities. So in evaluating codependency in relation to it, I think it would be most impactful to ask myself some hard questions of, am I doing this because they need me to, or am I doing this because I need to? Because really, codependency is when we put our identity and our self-worth into the happiness and well-being of other people, and into really dysfunctional behaviors like people pleasing and the inability to say no, and not ever giving yourself time. Another thing that I would evaluate is, are you making sure that you're pouring from a full cup? Because that is the way that a codependent behavior can show up in that type of relationship, where you feel so necessary to fulfill other people's needs all the time that you don't fulfill your own needs. That is like a huge glaring sign of codependency, is not fulfilling your own needs. And I'm not talking about just going and getting a massage every now and then, or buying yourself a treat. Self-care is so much more than that. It's are you working on your mind? Are you connecting with nature? Are you spending time in meditation or prayer? Are you doing things that make your soul feel good, make your heart feel good? So I think that those are the three things that I would evaluate first and foremost in that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wow. I hope, yeah, she's still here, so she heard everything you said. No, I couldn't agree more. It is what you're saying, and especially the metaphor that you're using with the full cup. People who are codependent, they tend to give and give and give and drain themselves. It's like, yeah, you cannot pour from an empty cup, but that is really what is happening. And that's also why I see with a lot of people who suffer from codependency, after a while they're just burned out. So that is like, that also goes hand in hand. It was really helpful, thank you very much. So that is you're welcome. If you have any questions for other viewers, please leave them in the comments below. We will discuss them. So now so you came out your comfort zone. You bumped in from one situation to the other, and it led to becoming a codependency coach. I assume as a codependent, for me, it was the same. I never thought that I would help people overcome codependency and break free from toxic relationships. So for me, it's like, wow, so cool that I can do this, you know? So I don't know how you feel about it, but for me, it's like so rewarding. I closed so many deals in my professional life. I did so many things, but if I can genuinely help somebody, break a pattern or become more themselves, the reward you get from that is so much, so big, so much bigger than signing a deal or something. So how is it for you?
You know, it took me a while to, I would say, niche down to codependency. So if you're in the self-development industry and you've ever taken a course or listened to like a mindset business podcast or anything, they always tell you, like, niche down.
Exactly.
You have to niche down. You have to niche down. And when I came into this, you know, I came into it with that codependent mindset of, I want to help everybody. I want to take responsibility for everybody. And like, yeah, I'm not gonna do narrow. Like, I want to just help everyone. And so yeah. So I struggled a lot at first with like the message that I wanted to share with the world. Like, once again, I knew I wanted to end suffering, and I knew what kind of skills I had. You know, communication is something that's always been kind of a passion of mine, and exploring communication and listening to people and understanding where communication's roots come from. So that was kind of where I went at first. I was like, I'm going to be a communication coach. But then it was like, that was still so broad. And so I finally hired my life coach, which was literally the best decision I ever made in my entire life. And we started working through these really tough issues that kept coming up, like people pleasing and low self-worth and not being able to validate my own feelings and like all these things, anxiety. And him and I started working through all of these, and I was like, through our work, I was like, Ben, this just keeps pointing back to codependency. Like, I think I need to be a codependency coach. And he was like, yes, that's it. That's it. And so I was like, okay, because once again, it was like, how many people are suffering from these types of things, but don't even know that they're suffering from them? All I knew was that things were still not working. I was putting in all this work. I was trying so hard to change my mindset and stuff, but like, it wasn't working. And it was because these past behaviors and patterns kept showing up, and I didn't have the tools or knowledge to be able to deal with them. Exactly. Now I have the tools and knowledge, and I want to spread it like wildfire.
Exactly. Yeah, but that's exactly what you're saying. You have to master the knowledge as well. You have to be aware of what is happening, what is a pattern. And even when you focus on it, and even when you master yourself in codependency, like you and me, we have our experiences, we have our education. But even with us, it is sometimes difficult. And sometimes you have like, oh, sure, I'm doing it again. Or, oh no, I'm bumping again. I'm disconnecting with myself. Why am I doing this? And it is a process constantly over and over again. And I also noticed that a lot of people hesitate to talk about it. I think there's also a big taboo still around codependency and the toxic relationships. And also a lot of, I think, shame is the right word. Shame for people to open up and to be honest about that subject. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work that to be done if we speak about codependency. I see a question coming in. Coping amongst COVID-19 asks, how would you recommend bringing back romance and passion when a relationship has become codependent and overly focused on getting by day to day? Wow, that's a very important and a very big question. I don't know what you would say, but one of the things that I would say in a relationship is take some time, take a step back to really feel what it is that you want. What is your need in the relationship? What is your need from the other partner? What is your need in that relationship? And sometimes, especially when you're in a codependent relationship, you poured enough, your cup is almost empty, and you cannot feel what you want, or you cannot connect with yourself. So that's one of the things that I would say. Try to take a step back and try to find your strength, your center again, connect with yourself, and from that point of view, start communicating with your partner and express your needs, like, hey, this is my need, or this is my feeling, or this is what I want from you, or what I need from you. I don't know what you would recommend in this situation.
I'm sorry, give me 1 second. My dog's gonna start barking at the door and interrupt us.
No problem. No problem at all.
What happens? Okay.
So for the people who are tuning in, if you have any questions for Leah or for me, leave them in the comments below. We will gladly discuss them. So I hope that coping amongst COVID-19 is still here. So we're discussing your question. So I don't know, what would you recommend to her? Or
I think that codependency is probably something that a lot of people in relationships are struggling with right now, because so many people are home. And also, guys, there are 3 different dimensions of loneliness, right? So because of that, right, we've got intimate or emotional relationships, we have social connections like friends, and then we have like community, which is just like our neighbors and stuff. So right now, because of the way that the world is, a lot of us are cut off from 2 of the dimensions that come into loneliness. So when that happens, we still feel loneliness even though we have a very fulfilling relationship. But what also tends to happen, and what has happened in my relationship amongst COVID, is I put all of my eggs into one basket. Instead of being able to spread it out in 3 different baskets and get my needs fulfilled for socializing and for human connection, because guys, we do have basic needs for human connection as humans.
Exactly.
When we don't have the ability to get those needs filled by these other 2 areas, we tend to really want our partner to fulfill all those needs. So it's really taking that step back, like you said, and evaluating, like, am I asking too much? Am I asking them to do something that I should be doing myself? Am I asking them to validate feelings for me? Because it's nobody's job to validate my feelings but my own. Nobody knows what I'm feeling. They can't validate my feelings. It's asking, do I have enough information right now to even be having this conversation or to even be feeling this way? Like, do I have enough information? I love Mel Robbins' 5-second rule, and I apply it a lot in life in different areas, where you give yourself 5 seconds to take a step back before you respond. And yeah, some people might think it's a little bit rude for you to pause before you're responding, but anybody who does this kind of work understands that a pause can be really important. It means that there's deep thinking going on. It means that they're really trying to formulate a response. So it's important for us to take that step back. It's really important to take that step back and evaluate, like, where am I coming from right now in this?
Exactly. And that's so important. And I'm somebody, I need to really think about something. So I learned to master, like, if somebody's asking me something and it's like a deep question or a deep conversation, I learned to say, like, hey, let me take that in and let me think about it, and I come back to it. And not just give an instant answer just because that's society or because of expectations of others, but it is like a huge shift as well, because you have to say, like, hey, I'm taking one step back, I'm going to think. And not everybody likes that as well. It's like, hey, what you're doing, why are you cutting off the dialogue? No, we should. So I think that's also very important in a relationship. Feel the comfort to say, I'm going to take that in and I'm going to feel how it feels for me. I'm going to feel how I experience it and what I want to do with it. So yeah, she reacted already with a kissing emoticon. So
yeah, I want to add that communication is key. You know, if my partner just walks away from me in the middle of a very emotional conversation, my sense of abandonment gets triggered. Like, it's not productive. But if he tells me, if he's communicative and he's like, hey, I need a moment to think about this before I respond, then I'm so much more receptive to it. I don't get that sense of abandonment. I don't feel like he's walking away from me. I feel like he's taking a moment to formulate his thoughts. So communication is really important in that too, without a doubt.
No, that's so true. And feeling the comfort and the safety to express your feelings towards each other as well. Because what you're mentioning now is like, he's walking away, that's triggering that part inside myself. You have to feel the safety to explore that as a first step. And the second one, to say it to your partner as well. Like, hey, this is my experience. This is what I need from you. We're gonna to start a little bit more about the topic of the interview, if we speak about women and empowerment, because you love to empower other people, and that's also part of the codependency coach, I think, empowering others.
Yeah, I feel like we could talk about codependency all day long.
Yeah, that's sure. I think that's as well. We should think about another live just about codependency and toxic relationship and patterns, because we can feel, I think, a tons of lives about that topic. That's for sure. So if we talk about women and empowerment, you're also an empowered woman. What made you, what gave you the courage to empower others? What was it? Because you don't wake up one day saying, like, now I'm going to empower everybody that I meet. So what was it for you? When did you start noticing that you wanted to empower other people?
Yeah. I think that women empowerment is huge and so necessary. And like, honestly, my journey of becoming an empowered woman has been slow and steady. And my mom is a very empowered woman, and we're very small. All the women in my family are very petite. We're all very, very small, and we're all very loud. And I always say big things come in small packages. Like, so there's just this sense of like, we're all firecrackers a little bit. My grandmother is honestly the sweetest woman in the entire world. And I don't know if we could really call her a firecracker, but I'm willing to bet earlier on in her life, she was definitely more of a firecracker, but she's very sweet and non-combative. My mother, however, you know, especially raising me as a single mom for a good portion of my childhood, she wanted me to be powerful. She remembers when she would yell at me that I would kind of cower, and she hated that because she wanted me to be a powerful woman. She wanted me to be an empowered and powerful woman. She wanted me to never give myself over to a toxic relationship, because like that had been a cycle that had happened a lot of times in our family. And so having a sense of power within me kind of started at an early age. When my mother got married, I was 8, and things were great for a while. But you see, in childhood, we hit this stage around, I would say probably about 10 to 12, where we really start to express our opinions. I think I referred to it as the know-it-all stage, right? We know everything, and like we really get very, very firm in sharing our beliefs and in just being passionate about what we think we know. And that's natural. It's natural. Now, what happened to me, unfortunately, and what happens, I think, to a lot of children is this is when we start to get belittled for our beliefs. This is when we start to get told that we're wrong. This is when we start to get told that we need to think differently, or that we need to quiet down, or that we don't know enough. Like this is when imposter syndrome is born into us. And it doesn't necessarily always happen from family members.
No.
A lot of times it's just from society in general. It can happen from school. There are teachers who can use humiliation as a tactic, and that is absolutely stifling to a child's ability to show up as an empowered individual and show up powerful in their knowledge. And I think women, because of past generations, even more so, are kind of told to be quiet, right? We're told to if we're aggressive, we're bossy.
Exactly.
If we're passionate, we are
that's not done. If you're too loud, you're too in your face, you're too in the spotlight,
we're irritating. Yeah. So I spent a lot of my high school years and stuff, even just from friends and stuff, being belittled and told to be quiet. And unfortunately, like this is what they were being taught too. So like this cycle just continued of like, hey, sit down, shut up, be quiet. And yeah, so the power started to diminish a little bit. And I kept fighting it, right? And I kept fighting it, and I kept sharing my opinions. I joined speech and debate, and I was really passionate about the things that I shared on. And I continued to try to push through that sit down, shut up. And there were a lot of periods in my time where I did. I was very quiet. I got really good at putting on masks in order to fit into certain crowds. You know, if it was a crowd of a bunch of country folks, then you best believe I was wearing cowboy boots and a flannel. And like, that was just what I did. I fit in. I tried to fit in no matter what, but there was never this sense of belonging. So even this followed me after high school. I moved out on my own and still kind of struggled with like friends and stuff. And like, I would get friends that I would be friends with for brief amounts of time that I would like pay for everything, and I would enable them to be irresponsible because like that was just what I did to fit in. Like it was all about fitting in. And it was finally when I started really learning about self-development that I started to really pull my power back that I had as a child. And I started to really stand firm in my beliefs. And, you know, my life coach, he asked me this super powerful question. And I was like, that's it. I'm empowering other women. He was like, are you willing to be hated? Are you willing to be hated to end suffering? Are you willing to be hated to impact the world? Because guess what? You're going to have to put yourself out there vulnerably. You're going to have to put yourself out there and allow people to judge you. If you want to attract the people whose lives you're going to change, you got to be willing to also attract the people who are going to hate you for absolutely no reason.
Exactly.
And that was the moment I was like, everybody needs to learn this. Yeah. Every woman out there needs to learn that she has the power inside of her to move mountains, to make huge changes, that the only thing that is stopping her is the fact that her true self has been buried by societal conditioning, exactly. Family cycles, all of this crap. And so, like, for me, empowerment is an excavation process. Mm-hmm. It's excavating all of the stuff that has buried our most powerful self from childhood.
Wow, you pronounce it so well. Yeah, wow, that's so powerful. And I think it's also so true, because everything we need is already inside ourselves. And also the part that you're saying, you're gonna be hated. No matter what you want, no matter what you will do, you're gonna be hated. So you better get used to that idea, or to that thought that people will hate you, and just stick to yourself. So I really love that mindset as well. How did you cope with that? Because it's one thing to say, yeah, people, they will hate me anyways, it's okay, but you're codependent as well. And I know from the bottom of my heart, like, if somebody said to me like 2 years ago, oh, Selina, you stuck in I really hate what you're doing, I was like, my heart broke in 1,000 pieces. It was like, no, what can I do, and how can I set things right? How was it for you? Because it's also a difficult process that you're going through.
Yeah, it has not been an easy process by any means, and I am not completely resilient to it yet. You know, I'm still working on it, but it doesn't cripple me in the way that it used to. And that's part of what has led me to want to empower other women to step into this, you know. And I have come up with a process that works for the right people because it worked for me. Mm-hmm. And it was really introduced. My life coach. Okay, so back up. I love a challenge. I love a challenge. I am somebody who loves to rise to a challenge. I'm very competitive. My life coach challenged me to share live on Facebook 10 controversial topics that made me really uncomfortable to talk about.
Can you give an example of one topic?
Yeah, so I shared once a day for 10 days, and I started with like the less uncomfortable topics and worked my way up to like the most uncomfortable topic. And so like I talked about how I was moving my family towards a plant-based diet, but we weren't going to go full vegetarian. And like, this was something that's unconventional and somewhat uncomfortable to talk about, but it wasn't like world ending. So that was like kind of like a starting point. But then like by the end, I was talking about like sex trafficking, kids and sex trafficking. And I was talking about religion and alternative medicine, and topics that are really like, guys, topics that hit people hard. Yeah, hard. Exactly. And it's so crazy. Okay, so it's so crazy. So when he challenged me to do this, he's like, are you willing to be hated? Like, let's do this. And I was like, all right, I'm showing up. And I did. I showed up every day for 10 days and I shared. Wow. And not one person attacked me in any of those videos. Not one person attacked me. Not one person said anything negative in one of those videos. But it's funny because in correlation to posting these live videos on my personal profile, I was part of a Facebook challenge, and part of the challenge was going live every day in a group and selling yourself, like selling your services. So I was doing that separately, and in that group, I got attacked. I got hated for just being me, not for even sharing a controversial topic, but just for being me. There's one guy who I guess just didn't like my content, and he was after every single video, and he got meaner and meaner with each video that I posted. And nobody stuck up for me. Nobody said anything. Like, and it was really hard, honestly, for me. Like, I was like, wow, this sucks. Like, why?
Why? Yeah.
Why? Because, right, as a codependent, I want to be liked. And so instead of just being like, okay, I understand, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, like, whatever, it was like, why? Like,
but
why don't you like me? Like, I need to know.
Probably. Yeah, exactly. But it ate you alive at that time. I can imagine. Exactly.
It took me 2 days and a very emotional conversation with my life coach to finally pull myself out of imposter syndrome. And this was the last time that I have been afflicted with imposter syndrome at that level, because I sat in my feelings for a while. And I want to just say that when you are putting yourself out there vulnerably, when you are really trying to share something that other people don't like to talk about, you got to be really comfortable in that topic. You got to be really comfortable in the darkness before you share the darkness. Exactly. And by sitting in that, I'm a lot more comfortable in sharing things that might make people not like me, or just sharing in general. It's not about me. And that's really what I realized. It's not about me. It's never about me. This whole journey isn't about me. I'm just blessed to grow from it. But I didn't become a life coach for me. I became a coach
for others,
for everyone else, for other people. And it's just accepting that it's not about me, and also accepting that, like, failure is not a risk. It's a guarantee in this. It's about if you're going to fail forward. And in that moment, I failed forward.
Exactly. You learn so much from that part of failing. And it's what I also say to people: if you fail forward. Pick out the things that will help you grow in the end, because then you're not failing. Failing is not trying. Failing is not getting up again, is staying where you are. But if you're trying, you're moving forward, you're making a progress, and that is not failing. So yeah. I saw a comment coming in. Is it called a troll? Yes, it's called a troll, or trolling online. Exactly. And nowadays, with everything in social media, it happens more often, unfortunately. I think we were in the same challenge, by the way. So I was there as well. Was it a 7-day challenge?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, for me, it was also way out of my comfort zone, turning your mess into your message and broadcasting everything online. It was, I know the feeling, exactly what you're talking about. So yeah, but you learn so much about it. The moment you decide to put yourself out there, to show yourself to the world, to share your vulnerability, to share your most awkward experiences, it is like something is clicking inside you. Like, yes, this is me. This is it. This is who I am. And from here on, I'm going to start. This is my basis. I'm going to work and I'm going to help. And it's a huge, for me, it was like a huge shift in my personal development. So I'm very grateful for that moment, although I was cursing the whole time at that point of time. So yeah. If we speak also about women and empowerment, because I'm from Europe, you're from California, how is it at your place, women and empowerment? Do you notice things like that could use improvement, or that is like not where it should be? Are there some examples at your side?
Yeah, there's definitely a few that I can think of. I worked in construction, which is a very male-dominated industry, and there's still a lot of sexism that exists within that industry. Like, I went on a job site once and I was the only female, and the foreman came over and was like, I thought I saw hair. You're distracting all my workers. And I was like, oh no, excuse me, because I have long hair? Like, so that's the thing, is like, even though we have made so many leaps and bounds, like, it does still exist. And like, honestly, when you look at really most of the industries, they are still male dominated, and CEO positions are still male dominated. So there's still so much work to be done. And I think that a lot of it comes from just this sense of social conditioning, where women in the past were the homemakers, right? A lot of the times they stayed home and they made the home. Well, now society has shifted and women are like, hey, we want to do, like, we want to be treated equal. So now we're treated equal in the workforce in the sense that we work as much as a man, but then we're still expected to caretake the home. And it's hard to find this sense of balance where there has to be an adjustment in roles played, that men and women, if we're going to play equal roles in careers, we have to play equal roles at home too. That's something that is just so important. It's something that even honestly my fiance and I have struggled with a little bit, with me being home. I've launched a company this year and I have our 4-year-old home. So it's a lot. And
Yeah.
there were expectations that we've never done this before. So it's not like he had these expectations from experience. Like, these are expectations that were put because of societal conditioning, where because I was home and working from home, it was the expectation that the house was gonna like always be clean, and like I was gonna cook all the meals. And that still comes up for us occasionally because there's this conditioning, there's this like societal norm, and like, well, if a woman's home,
She has to do it. Yeah, it's not.
she's gotta do it. And I also think that women, we put so much pressure on ourselves. Like, I know I do. I put a lot of pressure on myself. And, you know, perfectionism is something that's really closely related to codependency as well. And it's something that has shown up a lot in my life. So, like, wanting to be the perfect mom while being the perfect codependency coach, while having the nice, clean, perfect home, like, all of these things are just unachievable. And
Yeah,
I've really
and the
I've
list
really
goes
tried
on
to.
and on as well, because you say you have a fiance, so you want to be like the perfect wife in
Yeah.
say for your fiance. You want to be like the perfect daughter for your mother. You want to be like the good friend for all your friends. You want to be healthy as well, because you have to be healthy nowadays. And if there's a baking thing at school, you want to be that as well. So I understand that feeling, and the pressure for a woman nowadays is like high. But then I ask myself the question, or that's the question that I receive, is like, is it something that we think is necessary, or is it something that is caused because society expects it from us? What is the line between that? Is it us as women that we think we should be perfect in everything that we do, or is it also society that is dictating, like, hey, that is what it should be?
I think it's almost that question of like, did the chicken or the egg come first? Because I think that society plays a role, but it's our core beliefs. Like, do we believe what society says to believe? Do we believe that we have to be supermodel skinny in order to be beautiful? Because that does have a lot to do with your self-image and what you think your self-worth is in. But we have to realize where these beliefs come from. So it's really about asking yourself the question first, what is my self-worth? And then asking yourself, where is it coming from? Is this coming because I was told to feel this way?
Exactly. Then we come back to the point, like, take a step back and feel in yourself, who am I willing to show, what am I presenting to the world, and all those things. It's like being aware of who you are. And then exactly, it's like the chicken and the egg, the society, the fulfillment, the expectations. And we're all guilty of those things, because sometimes you get in a situation that you think like, oh shoot, now I'm doing it again. I'm trying to juggle and manage everything, but it's just not possible. Take a step back and just breathe and think like, okay, what's necessary? What's my priority? So no, I truly understand that part. If we speak about women and empowerment and like body image and also society wise, do you think there's a connection between them?
Huge, 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 huge. I think society 100% dictates what women feel like they should look like, and it's done by using the evil tool of comparison.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, we literally are taught to constantly compare ourselves to other women, and we're taught this by our mothers, who were taught to compare themselves to other women, who were taught by their mothers to compare. So like, I do feel like it's more than just society, it's cultural. It's cultural. This has been passed down and passed down and passed down. If your mother would make a dirty remark about a beautiful woman in the grocery store, then you're automatically like being conditioned in that moment to compare yourself to other women. And comparison kills. Comparison is literally what kills human connection and allowing us to unify. And we got to unify to be empowered. Like, we have to have community. Community is so essential in empowerment.
Exactly.
And it's all just these cycles. It's this vicious cycle that just continues. And like, I am here to break the cycle. I am here to break the cycle.
So for people who are watching, if you say like, hey, I want to break the cycle and I want to become more empowered and I want to start doing something like instantly today, because you speak about generation, you speak about decades, we're not going to change that overnight. That's just not possible. What can people do, according to your opinion, small steps doing on a daily basis? What can create a shift?
Okay, I have to be careful in answering this question.
Sorry.
Okay. So the reason that I have to be careful in answering this question is because I'm really guilty of overconsumption. And when I say overconsumption, I mean in knowledge. Knowledge is power, and I love it. I love it. So be careful, you know, always, everything is good in small doses, except for things like heroin. Like, that's not good in any dose. But knowledge is really the most powerful for us in small doses. And there's a reason behind this. If we just consume, we never allow ourselves to actually process what we're learning. And if we can't process it, we don't act on it. And action is really what's going to lead us to change our lives. So
True.
Consume small amounts of information every day that allow you to start shifting, because, you know, we've talked a lot about awareness and becoming aware, you know, asking small questions of yourself all the time. When you start feeling things that you don't like come up, like when you start, like, next time you say yes to something and you were like, why did I just do that?
Why did I do it? Yeah, exactly.
Ask yourself, where did that come from? Where did that come from? Then we're allowed to make a choice. You know, if we don't know, we can't choose differently. Now, just because you become aware doesn't mean that you're going to make a different choice. Like, this is where it's really impactful to get tools. And this is where that consumption comes in. Get tools and stuff. But become aware of where your behaviors and things are coming from, because only then can you choose something different.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's nicely said. And it's so important as well, the knowledge, and feed your brain. You can train your brain, use it, develop yourself, and do it day by day, step by step. You don't have to full blown go for something, but just do it easy peasy. It's with everything, just one step at a time. Yeah, we have like 22 minutes to go. Time is really flying. So for the people who are tuning in and still here, if you have a question, now is the moment. Feel free to leave them in a comment below. One of the questions I also received is like, nowadays, if we speak about male and female energy, are the men nowadays, are they ready for empowered women? What is your opinion about that?
The way that I want to empower women and the way that I've been empowered is very closely related to vulnerability. It's all about vulnerability. It's showing up vulnerable with yourself. It's showing up vulnerable. And honestly, the more I try to talk about vulnerability to men, the harder it is. Honestly, because unfortunately, culturally, socially, family cycles have dictated that vulnerability equates weakness. But vulnerability is what empowers us. And so I'm not sure if men are ready for vulnerable, empowered women. Because they feel like vulnerability is a weakness. So if we are showing up vulnerable, they don't think we're empowered. They think that we're showing up weak. Yeah, exactly. And vulnerability isn't just tears. It's not just crying in front of people. Vulnerability is showing up exactly as you are. Is expressing yourself. Exactly. Yeah. Being willing to only control that. You don't get to control how people respond. You can only control how you show up. No, that's true. It's like taking the step in expressing yourself, in showing yourself, in showing your feelings, in showing your thoughts, and at the same time
not focus on the other person that is
Yeah.
going to react. It's getting your emotion and your stuff done without being without caring about others, their opinion, their thoughts, everything about it. And I understand that part as well. But if we speak about men and empowered women nowadays, don't you feel like there's also a little shift coming more and more? Because I also, as codependency coach, we say like the majority of the time we work with women. I also work a lot with men. And if we speak about this topic, that's a lot of questions that I get in my coaching as well, is that men are saying like, hey, I meet an independent woman. She's empowered. She knows what she wants. But what is in it for, not what's in it for me, but what can I give to her? What benefit will I give to her life? She has everything she needs. She can take care of herself. She's empowered. She has a job, everything. What is in it for me? Because of society, because of generation, a man was there providing for a woman. But now things are shifting. A woman doesn't need a man anymore to take care of her. She needs a man to support her, to be there, to explore life. So that's a huge shift. So I also notice that men are struggling with that part as well. I don't know if you bump in those things as well.
I think that really relates back to vulnerability, you know, because as women, the more vulnerable that we're willing to be, the more that we're willing to ask for what we need.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I don't know about other women, especially other women who struggle with codependency, but a lot of times, like, I'm seeking empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's not always for the right reasons, but a lot of times from my partner, I am seeking empathy. I want empathy. I want to feel like I'm not crazy for feeling the way that I do, or for behaving the way that I behave. And like, I want that empathy, but not in the sense of like, oh babe, I know exactly how you feel. It's just being willing to look at it from my perspective without tainting it with yours.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, can you step into my shoes for a second and just see it from my perspective without allowing your perspective or experiences to dictate how you show up?
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And I think that can be really hard for men, because once again, we come back to this vulnerability. If they're gonna step into that for a second, they have to step into vulnerability with us. And that is really a little bit difficult for men to do. I do think that there's a shift in the sense that, like, we're seeing a lot more men that are open to, what's the word that I'm looking for? They're open to exhibiting feminine energy, because I think for a long time there was a stigma, right? Like, masculine energy comes from males and feminine energy comes from females. But in reality, that's not the truth. Men can display feminine energy and women can display masculine energy. Now, I think that for women, it's a lot easier for us to accept that we can exhibit masculine energy. For us, that, and for me, in a sense, that feels a little bit empowering, because men have always been in a power position. So like, masculine energy feels empowering.
We have like 1 minute and 50 seconds to go, so we have to wrap it up. But I'm gonna give like 30 seconds to you if there's anything you want to say to the audience. I really enjoyed this for so far. Maybe we should plan another live, because we can elaborate for hours, I think. Take it away, the 30 seconds, and then I'm gonna end up. Yeah.
So we've talked a lot today about social conditioning. We've talked about cultural conditioning, family cycles, and we've talked a lot about how it connects to codependency, but it also connects to feeling of low self-worth, loneliness, no sense of belonging, people pleasing, the inability to say no. If you are struggling with these things, I have a link in my bio. I'm going to offer for the next 48 hours free 30-minute discovery calls. So if you guys want to talk about this, if you guys are struggling with these kind of things, definitely reach out, because you don't have to do it alone. I don't know about you, Selina, but I spent years going through it by myself, and that is not what we have to do, guys. We don't have to go through it alone. And if you guys are interested in learning more about the types of things that I share, check me out on Facebook. It's facebook.com/leah.more.737. I really share a lot of content on my Facebook. I'll go ahead and drop a link in the comments. And if you guys want to check out free content that I share, that's the place to go.
We have 15 seconds. Thank you very much, Leah. We should definitely reschedule a new live and talk more about codependency. For everybody who was tuning in, thank you very much. See you very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.